Hey, remember to subscribe on YouTube, leave a review, smash the like button, just get with us. We are back inside Wisconsin. Trevor, John, Lane Grindle, Brewers radio play-by-play man. Lane, John and I just talked about our top 5 sports goosebumps moments. I'm curious, in your time with the Brewers, what has caused the most goosebumps while you're in the booth?
So probably neither of them I was on the call for, but 2 that stand out to me is Braun's grand slam in St. Louis in 19, right after Yelly had gone down with the injury in Miami, and the Brewers were starting to really surge. And that long at bat, and Braun went deep to hit the grand slam. It was just it was an amazing moment. And then for Braun in the clubhouse afterwards to essentially say, "I'm not the guy I used to be, but I can still be the guy when I need to be," was pretty cool. And then the other one would be Vogelback's grand slam last year. That one's really unique to me because, and of course, both of them are against the Cardinals. But the walk-off slam from Vogelback, because I was in the booth with Euchre that day. And the minute he hit it, I knew that he got it. And so I just spun my chair like around because I just wanted to watch Euchre call it. Because how many chances am I going to have to see Bob Uecker call a walk-off grand slam? And so I barely even watched the ball go over the wall. I turned and just watched him. And I mean, I did. I had goosebumps because he nailed the call. It was amazing. And, eventually he turned and started talking to me afterwards. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm on the air. Like, because I just became a fan in that moment and kind of a fan of Bob as much as I was Daniel Vogelback. And so that was really neat. And those are 2 that really stand out to me. I mean, I've had a chance to call some walk-offs here and there and some cool moments, but those 2 in my time are 2 of the biggest swings that the Brewers have had in the regular season, at least. And so I'll remember those. I'll remember those really, really well.
I was in the newsroom in Sports Center when the Vogelbach home run, and all of us exploded because we're all watching it. And even though we have all the games, you kind of get to where the drama is. So you're not just randomly watching the Marlins and the Padres, and the whole place. And plus, Vogelbach, you look at him, right? He looks like Barrel Man. The whole thing. It was fantastic. You say you're sitting there and you're listening and you're watching Euchre. And one of my top 5 goosebump moment, which didn't quite make it because it wasn't technically in a venue, but was when I did my first post Super Bowl, and I was doing it with Dan Patrick, and they're playing the opener, and I'm sitting next to Dan Patrick, and I'm looking at it and I go, wow, okay, I should just take a little snapshot of this. This is going to be one of my better days at work. When you sit next to that guy all the time, and like I said, we want to talk about you and not you because that's the easy part. But when you sit there, do you ever have a moment where I go, okay, I have to, like you said, oh yeah, I'm on the air? Because it would be easy enough to get caught up in both as good as he is, but the legend and there's a whole lot there that I think you kind of maybe have to get past to do your job like you'd like to do it every day.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and there's some truth in it. I had a real big advantage over other guys that have come in to work with Bob. Jeff had a little bit of this advantage too, in that I didn't work with Bob. I think I worked 4 games with Bob in like my first 5 years with the Brewers, first 4 years with the Brewers, and then I started working with him more regularly over the last 3. And so I've had a chance to develop this chemistry with him off air that has, to some degree, carried over to us when we're on the air together. And I think that's a big advantage. Other guys had to get hired, come in, and kind of work on that on the fly. Jeff had a year where he was in the role that I've been in for a long time, which was kind of the third guy in the booth. And then, of course, by year 2, Jeff ascended into the chair next to Bob at that point in time. So he had a little bit of time with Bob too, where you get to know him a little bit and you kind of understand the ins and outs of Bob and when to get in and when to get out. But I think there are times because of his personality too. He's such an entertainer. He's a great play-by-play man. He's a great entertainer, and he weaves those 2 things together better than I think anybody that's ever done it. And it becomes very, I guess, casual would be one of the ways that I would describe it. It becomes this fun kind of weaving in and out of baseball script that you're following over the course of 9 innings. And it is kind of easy to just get lost in that. And sometimes you have to go, oh, wait, yeah, no, like I got to hit the high notes still. And I got to punch it when there's a big play, and not just it's almost like when you're a role player on a team with a star and you get caught kind of watching that star if it's basketball with the basketball or whatever it is, because you're just in awe of the greatness. It's a little bit that way with Bob, right? Like, I'm smart enough to know I'm a role player on that broadcast and he's the star. And so you kind of get caught sometimes just watching the greatness. And I think that's okay, but you do have to be conscious of it because you got a job to do too.
Man, I get caught watching the greatness. That was actually me as a kid, Lane, at County Stadium. Everybody was watching the game. I had the binoculars and I was watching Bob Betts and Bob Uecker up in the booth do their thing. So Jeff Levering told a story about him getting the job by going out to dinner with Bob Uecker in Arizona. Did you get that pleasure as well?
Yeah, it was a little different than Jeff's experience, but very, very similar. I got the job late in terms of spring training had already begun. The games hadn't started yet, but the team had already reported. Everybody was down at the spring training complex. That was kind of the end of my process. So I was doing University of Nebraska athletics, and I was getting ready for the college baseball season. And they called me like 2 days before I was supposed to leave for Nebraska's first series in Charleston, South Carolina. And they just said, hey, we're getting towards the end of this. Can you come down and have dinner with Bob in Phoenix? And then, hopefully we can kind of wrap this thing up. And they hadn't offered me the job yet, but you felt like that was a pretty good step, pretty good indication of what was going on. I had known what had happened with Jeff the year before because it was in, I think, some story I had read in Sacramento, which is Jeff's hometown. And so I thought that was a good sign, but I really felt bad about leaving Nebraska kind of out of luck for that weekend series. So I said, well, can I come down Monday? I'll fly from Charleston to Phoenix and get down there. And they said, yeah. So I ended up having breakfast with Bob. I think it was Tuesday morning. And we had breakfast in Scottsdale. And I got there first, and I'm sitting at the table, and I remember seeing him get out of his car and walk in, and it was a, oh my gosh moment. Like, that is Bob Uecker, and he's coming to have breakfast with me. And so we sat there for, I bet it was 2.5 hours at breakfast, and I was pounding coffee. And I wasn't even a huge coffee drinker at the time, but just nervous. It's Bob Uecker. And so I'm pounding coffee. And probably an hour and a half in, I got to go to the bathroom. But he's telling stories. I mean, he's in Bob Uecker story mode. And I don't want to interrupt. It's Bob Uecker, right? So finally there is this window, maybe 2 hours in. I'm like, hey, Bob, would it be okay if I went to the restroom? And he's like, how long have you had to go? He's like, come on, man, go to the bathroom. So I went, came back, and then we wrapped up. And basically he stuck his hand out at the end and said, I can't wait to work with you. And that was kind of the, okay, here we go moment. And it was really something to hear him say that. And I think Jeff had a similar experience, maybe a little bit of a difference there. But that's a pretty cool thing when you hear Bob Uecker say that.
Did he make you set up a tee time to go play golf like he did with BA? Did he say?
So I golf, but I'm not BA. Like, BA is like a legit 2, probably, handicap, something like that. And Levering's gotten pretty good too. I think Levering's like probably legit under 10 handicap wise. I'm a hacker. I mean, like a glorified, if I break 100, I am celebrating and buying drinks for everybody. So I don't get the invite a lot on the road to go golfing with those guys, and which is smart. I would totally disrupt their games. I have played with Bob once. We played a couple of years ago in October, like when the season ended, we went out and played. And I think Bob was like, oof. I think he was kind of like, I don't know if I'm going to give this invite to Grindle. We'll just stick to fishing. Bob and I both love to fish. I fished my whole life. If I can do one thing other than call a baseball game or spend time with my family, I'm fishing. And so I think Bob's like, okay, Grindle's role is going to be to go fishing with me. I'll go golfing with Levering.
When was the last time you were with someplace with Euchre that he didn't know somebody?
Oh, I don't know that I don't know that I can. I don't know that I have a story on that. I have a great story about everybody knowing him, and that was 2019. We're in Arizona
Right.
for a series with the Diamondbacks, and the second to last night we were there, he decides that he wants to eat from the concession stands. And he tells me before the game, like, let's go out to the concession stands and get our food. And I'm like, okay, well, tell me what you want. I'll go get it for you. And he's like, no, I'll go. And I'm like, it's a bad idea. Like, I don't think that's going to go well. Everybody's going to be pointing at you and wanting to take pictures. And, like, you're going to have a hard time getting from the press box to the concession stand. And he's like, no, it'll be fine. That's no big deal. And so we went, and immediately we got off the elevator and people are pointing, and it's Bob Uecker in a baseball stadium, pretty recognizable. And I think the first guy stood and pointed at him for a second, and he goes, Robin Yount. And we're like, no, not Robin Yount. And then a couple other people, came up and asked for a picture. Bob Uecker, Mr. Baseball, a lot of those comments. And then we were in line, and the lady was staring at us for quite a while. And she finally said, I think I know you from a TV show, to Bob. And Belvedere. And so that was interesting, just walking a concourse with Bob Uecker, where everybody's coming up to him and trying to talk to him. And you hear the just a bit outside, like every 5 steps you take, somebody's yelling that on the concourse. Jeez. So that was a good education in, like, is Bob Uecker recognizable outside of Milwaukee? Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. The day I met you, Lane, I actually was standing in the concourse with Bob Uecker and some other people next to me, and to watch them react and go, like, I mean, probably I would do that too. I didn't that day, but I totally get that. John, would you do that? Like, we talk about getting starstruck. Real quick off the cuff, like, I would be. Look, I can't even talk about it. Would you be starstruck, John? Have you met him?
I've been in his presence, but I don't know if I'd be starstruck anymore. Right. I guess over 30 years, I've run into a few folks here and again. But it's different to meet someone. I think all of us, and Trev, I don't know, you haven't quite trafficked in the same place the same way, but so you get used to some of it, but there's a difference between people that you grew up knowing, watching, and were significant, as opposed to that maybe you are contemporaries with or covers. And I always make it like this. When I see Tiger Woods, I have no trouble talking to Tiger Woods. Hey, Tiger Woods. Jack Nicklaus still makes me shake a little bit, right? And they're both arguably the greatest golfer of all time, but one was Jack Nicklaus. And I've had several dealings with him. And even now, like if I walked into a room and visit, I think he would recognize me. But I still would be like, yikes,
Yeah.
Where you just don't have that, I did on set one time with LeBron and Dwayne Wade, and that was totally natural and comfortable. And here it is. But I think if I saw Sidney Moncrief, I might go, oh, damn, there's Sidney Moncrief. So I can see where that happens. But yeah, Euchre would be a little different animal. Or if you go farther away, because we talk about the transistor, the two some I grew up with for the longest time were he and Merle Harmon.
Yeah.
So those two guys were, that was, and that was that's the soundtrack as it were to my childhood. And that's what you had, because you got a Brewer game on TV once every, if you were lucky, 6 or 8 weeks. I mean, it just didn't happen.
Yeah.
So it would be tough.
The thing about Bob when you meet him is that he disarms you so fast, because he hits you with the humor right away and makes you feel like you've known him for so long, that I think that would wear off quickly for most people that meet Bob, because that's just his style. But I agree with you, John. Like, people from my past are the people that, like, when I've had a chance to meet him, sometimes I'm like, whoa. Henry Aaron was that for me. When Bob introduced me to Henry Aaron, I couldn't get words to come out of my mouth. It's Henry Aaron. And Vin Scully was another one where the one chance I had to meet Vin, it was pretty cool. and pretty special. And Bob was the same way for about, again, like 10 seconds. And then he disarms you so fast that you feel like you've known him, that kind of just changes with him very, very quickly.
All right, I got to follow up to this dream job thing, and then we will go to break and come back for a lightning round. But one more here. You clearly are living a dream job, Lane, right? This is a place that you thought you'd never be. We all know where John sits on every other night basis these days. And I'm really digging this, but there's one gig that, Lane, you have had that I badly want someday, and it is sitting behind that public address announcer's microphone at AmFam Field. And I believe I was there when you made your PA debut in the playoffs. Did you not? Was that the first time? Was it game one of the NLCS?
I have never, so just not to downplay your dream, because I think that's awesome. I've never had a desire to do PA. I did it as a kid. That's kind of how I started on the microphone, was when I was in junior high. I got asked to do Malvern, Iowa, Little Panther football, which was like the 5th and 6th graders football. And I was a 7th grader, and I'm doing PA, and I was an idiot with that job. I was making up fake program ads, and if you have an autographed copy from the head coach, then you win something special, and none of it was real. It was all fake advertisement from me, just trying to add to the environment of a game with maybe 12 sets of parents watching some football. But and then at Nebraska, my last year there, out of necessity, I got kind of pushed into being the PA guy for Nebraska football, and I didn't want to do it, and I fought it, and they were like, "We got to have you do it," because it was like 4 days before the opener, and the previous PA guy, we won't get into it, but he needed to be relieved of his duties, and so they had nobody else, and so I got kind of forced into it, and I was like, I want to be on the sideline, but they wouldn't let me do it, so I had to do the PA. And I'm sorry I'm saying I had to, but I really felt that way. I had to do the PA for my last year in Nebraska. But then with the Brewers, I actually made my debut, not many people know this, on the PA mic in 2017 for a Cubs series. When Travis Shaw hit that walk-off in 2017 against the Cubs, I actually did the PA for 2 games. I think it was the Saturday and the Sunday of that, because Rob Edwards fell ill and wasn't able to be there. And then when Rob got injured with his knee in 2018, then they had me fill in for the postseason. And I'll be honest with you, I got a kick out of that. That was pretty fun. It was fun to have that role in that environment.
That was a huge game, and it was really, really loud. And I can vividly remember I was sitting in the second deck in right field, and it is my dream. And I remember I have an ear for this, whether it's Rob Edwards or Bob Betts before Rob, or the current gentleman who I've met, but I unfortunately don't know his name. And I knew something was up. That was not a voice I recognized, and it took me all game to realize it was you, Lane. But anyway, great job. Little introduction would be wonderful. All right, third segment number 3. That's next, Inside Wisconsin.
Inside Wisconsin is brought to you by Baycare Clinic, Blaine's Farm and Fleet, the University of Wisconsin-Platteville, Rolltech, Festival Foods, Capital Credit Union, North Star Mohican Casino Resort, American Family Insurance, Miller Lite, and Aaron's Company.
Hey, remember to subscribe on YouTube, leave a review, smash the like button, just get with us.